Hey guys, Drifter here. Today I've got a video for you about what's being referred to as the Snipocalypse in Black Ops 2. For those of you that are unaware, Black Ops 2 was recently patched to nerf the two most popular sniper rifles. The DSR-50 got a nerf, and the BALLISTA got a nerf. Well, I covered this briefly on my in-depth episode about the patch notes. It really focused more on the AN-94 and some of the other things. I personally was not expecting the community reaction that happened, and I don't believe that Treyarch was either, and I could only describe this community reaction as being akin to kicking a hornet's nest and then setting that next to an Africanized beehive, because the Call of Duty community disagrees about many things, and as a matter of fact I think that there's few things that they could all be said to agree on, except that lag is bad. But it pitted again normal players, reg gun users, against quickscopers and snipers in general, and it was a pretty brutal place on Twitter and for David Vonderhaar. I'm going to explain the gameplay briefly. This is me hard scoping on purpose with the DSR-50, doing what I would call real sniping or old man sniping. I start off doing a round or two of hard scoping, and I do quickscope a little bit if people get too close to me, and I don't like that when they're close to me. And then we move over to some quickscoping gameplay from Phase Cross, and then some spam sniper rifle gameplay from me later on. But we're going to stick to the old man grandpa sniping for now. The patch that came out caused a lot of quickscopers to actually want to leave the game and go back to MW3. And when I say quickscopers, I'm talking about relatively bigger or more popular or quickscopers that have fans. So I'm going to read some of these tweets to you. From Unite Legacy, we have DSR is ruined. Well, back to MW3. From Mozak, we have hashtag fuck BO2 going back to hashtag MW3 unless they get back to hashtag DSR like it used to be, but I'm not playing this shitty game. We've got Stacy Morgan. Well, MW3, here I come. Bye-bye, hashtag BO2 and your horrible DSR. We've got Dirty Legend, really Vondi, patching the DSR and the Ballista. Does LMG Target Finder really mean anything to you? Well, back to MW3, hashtag really Vondi. We've got one from FaZe Banks here, says you can't even hit a solid quad feed, all singles with the DSR anymore. What a joke. Who wants an invite to MW3? And while it reads kind of funny, this is a topic we're actually going to talk about later in this video, because with the most recent patch, it's actually impossible to get a quad feed with the DSR-50, no matter how good you are. We have from Optic Macau here, it says not motivated to play MW2 after the patch. Sad face. That's one of the more reasonable ones. And I also was sent a tweet from subscribers by Kelsey Coleman. I'm not familiar with her. I don't know if she's like super important or not, but it says, I'm quitting Black Ops 2 and I'm not buying Ghost because of the patch on snipers. Get real, change it back to how it used to be. And by get real, I hope that you mean get real that we like it and not get real as in realistic, because if you mean realistic, I might have to no longer wish to live on this planet and or set my brain on fire. There were also a lot of people threatening Vonderhaar this time around. David Vonderhaar is the lead developer or lead programmer, I'm not mistaken, whatever his title is on Black Ops 2. He's extremely high up the chain in the multiplayer development, and he kind of got the unofficial job as community manager. I know that Treyarch actually has community managers, but when you think of Black Ops, you just think of Vonderhaar. Whatever Von says means it, and he gets a lot of flack because he's actually the guy that has the switch with the numbers and he can play with things. So they tweet him instead of the community managers, and he gets a lot of death threats on a daily basis. As a matter of fact, he gets so many death threats, he never goes anywhere without at least one bodyguard, and most often two bodyguards. I've seen David Vonderhaar twice in my life, one at a distance. One time I briefly got to shake my hand and introduce myself before he, wandered off elsewhere to nerf things. But in both of these instances, he was with a bodyguard, and it was a serious deal because he gets so many death threats and so many searches on his identity, attempted theft of identity, my bad, that it's actually a threat for him and his family and his loved ones and that sort of thing. And during this patch, he actually got so many death threats from the sniping community, from the Call of Duty community in general, that the Treyarch community manager had to come out and issue a statement that it was actually made gaming news on IGN and Eurogamer and other websites. Just the sheer quantity and viciousness of the death threats. And I'm just going to go out on a limb here and guess that Treyarch is probably running extra security for him just so that, he gets to live at the end of the day. And that's something that's utterly ridiculous. Even if Vonderhaar all of a sudden decided to turn all of the sniper rifles into potato guns that only shot like sweet potatoes at people that gave them health, that's not a reason to want to murder somebody and their entire family, and that's just very childish. Unfortunately, it's sort of a numbers game. We'll just use a simple number here and say the Call of Duty community is 10 million people large. It's much bigger than that, but we'll say 10 million. And let's just say that, I don't know, like 1/10 of 1% of them is completely crazy and off of their mind. Well, 1/10 of 1% of 10 million is, oh boy, I think that's like 10,000 people, I hope. I'm just doing mental math here. Please don't quote me on that. So one thing I'd like to say before moving forward is please do not send death threats to people. I get these on occasion. It's the reason that I own firearms, that I have extra security in my house, and that I'm getting concealed carry soon, is because I do feel for myself and my family are occasionally threatened, and it's not nice to do that for others. Even if you're not serious, sometimes the sarcasm doesn't necessarily come through text. Despite this patch, I would say that about 25% of my team, whenever I go into a random lobby and I'm not playing with my friends, are snipers. In a 6-man squad, this is usually going to be 2 people, sometimes 3. In a ground war, it's much more prevalent. Usually 3 to 4 of the 9 people on my team are sniping. Sniping is still a very popular thing to do in Black Ops, or really any Call of Duty game. And I don't think there's a reason to have that many snipers on the team. Really, no team should have, I think 1 sniper is ideal, definitely not more than 2. I don't know it's not like you get any sort of increasing gains for snipers, actually decreasing, diminishing efficiency. But it didn't seem to damage the popularity of the snipers from the player base. Then why is the quickscoping community so mad about it? Well, let's take a look at the numbers and see what it actually did. Here are the rates of fire for the 2 sniper rifles that were nerfed. The old rate of fire is in the brackets there, and the new rate of fire is in the squiggly brackets, the sort of mustache brackets like the face on the end. The Ballista got a very, very minor nerf. It dropped it from 51 rounds per minute down to 47 rounds per minute. Not a big difference there. There's another nerf that happened to the Ballista that we'll talk about later that was probably more noticeable. The most noticeable one was on the DSR-50. That one was changed from 50 rounds a minute down to 40 rounds per minute. That's essentially a 20% decrease, or if you want to measure from the new, that could be like a 25% decrease, just depending on your frame of reference there. That one you can actually feel. It lowers the rate of fire significantly. It's not a fast sniper rifle, and it feels like it chugs and it's slow. And speaking of slow, both the DSR-50 and the Ballista got sprint in and sprint out times increased by 0.05 seconds, or 50 milliseconds, or 1/20th of a second. That's the time when you're sprinting and your gun is kind of down pointing at the ground and you stop and then you pull it up. The time that it takes to sprint out and pull it up and be able to fire it again got increased by 1/20th of a second. And when you're done shooting and you sprint again, the time to drop it also got increased by 1/20th of a second. So all combined, let's say you sprint, you stop, you shoot, and then you go back to sprinting, the total animation has increased by 1/10th of a second. And for most people that doesn't sound like a whole lot, but in Call of Duty 1/10th of a second is a very long time. You kill people very, very quickly in this game. Most gunfights are decided in fractions of a second. That is definitely a significant change that people can feel, and it does have some implications. It seems minor, but some of the implications include that it's impossible to get a quad feed with the DSR, with the exception of collaterals. The DSR-50 now fires so slowly that if you fire as fast as you possibly can and hit every single shot, you will not get a quad feed over on the left side. Your name will not go all the way up 4 times, because by the time you shoot the 4th person, the one above you will have begun to fade, because that's how long it takes to fade. The only way to get quad feeds with the DSR is to get collaterals, which is shooting more than 1 person at a time. This makes montages impossible. You don't get quite the same prestige with the gun. You can't show off with it. It's kind of a first world problem. You know, I'm so good with this gun, I can't even fill up my quad feed. Quickscoping got slower, which makes it harder. This is true for both of the sniper rifles. The time to sprint out and then the recover and go back and forth got a little bit slower. This makes it somewhat harder to quickscope. The faster you can pop to aiming down sights, the better you can quickscope, which is why quick draw, which gave you faster ADS, was more prominent, or exclusively prominent to sniper rifles in the other games. You pretty much couldn't quickscope without it. And the lower fire rates mean that there is a much higher skill cap to sniping. If you miss, there's now no longer going to be much chance that you can fire again. Before, if you missed, you were probably dead, but sometimes somebody would panic and miss some shots, and you can get your second quickscope in and kill them, or your second shot. Now, especially with the DSR-50, if you miss, there's pretty much no hope that you're going to be able to fire again. And the 1.5 seconds of fire time that it takes for you to totally rechamber your round and be ready to fire again, most weapons, depending on their rate of fire, they can shoot all the way, you know, from like 600 to 1200 RPM. They're going to be getting somewhere around 20, 21, 22, 23 rounds off at you. Some of the slower ones down 15, 16, 17. Some of the faster ones maybe up around 25, 23, you know, maybe higher 30s. You put rapid fire on it, but people can dump somewhere between a half and a whole magazine into you in between the time that you're working that bolt on the DSR-50, which if you use the DSR-50 is definitely not good for you, because with the sprint in and out times they're now slightly less mobile than they used to be. They're slower sniper rifles, they're not quite as run and gun, which is rough because Black Ops 2 is a run and gun game. Lastly, people that were good at these weapons, that totally mastered them, they now have to relearn their tactics in order to be able to, or to relearn their timing, which is a rough thing since they've been doing it for 8 months. They got to redo all that timing to get good at quickscoping again. I'm sure you found all of that information as enlightening as I did, and the question that was in all of your heads the whole time, those of you that didn't get bored and exit this video, is should quickscoping even exist? And this is a question that's been a problem in the Call of Duty community ever since maybe COD 2, when it really started picking up in popularity, when it became a thing, so to speak, is that should quickscoping even exist? Like, why is this allowed in our game? And quickscoping is sort of an accident of the game mechanics. The way Call of Duty works is it's built on the Quake engine. The Quake engine was not really designed for Call of Duty. It was designed for Quake, which is a really fast-paced first-person shooter with rockets and lasers and stuff, kind of like Unreal. But it was extremely heavily modified to have the aim-down sights mechanic and the hipfire mechanic and a lot of other mechanics that are familiar with Call of Duty. And the reason that Call of Duty runs the way it does, the reason is you jump smoothly, climb smoothly, the way your animations work, and the way that good feel of you running around and working your guns is because of the Quake engine. But because of the Quake engine, there is a transition phase between when you aim down sights and your hipfire, or from hipfire to aim down sights, and that auto aim cone changes pretty drastically, doesn't necessarily always match the animation, and this sort of mismatch is what causes you or allows you to be able to quickscope. It was not done on purpose, trust me. This is not a game mechanic that was built on purpose. Speaking of which, Call of Duty is what is described as an arcade shooter. It is not a realistic game by any measure. Do not ever think that because you can shoot guns and kill people in the Call of Duty that you can do this in real life. You're just going to hurt yourself and others. And if you think that, somehow playing this qualifies you to join the army, very, very bad idea. However, the game is built around realism. The single-player story is very serious. The multiplayer objectives are usually relatively serious. The characters are serious. We're looking. We have real guns, and they worked really hard to get the real gun feel. Not many games that I play have a good feel for the weapons like Call of Duty, and I say that in that I know real-life weapons are nothing like Call of Duty weapons, and they don't feel like Call of Duty weapons, but even when I think about the real-life guns that I shoot, the nice little memories that I have of the Uzis and MP5s and things that I've been able to play with, I remember them like I play them in Call of Duty. And it feels close enough to where most people don't really care and they don't really nitpick, but quickscoping is kind of a part of this, because quickscoping, we'll call it a happy accident. It kind of sort of feels like somebody that might be really good with a rifle could pick your butt off really close, or could hip fire you pretty, relatively closely, or they could do the high ready position where they're not quite aiming down sights, but they're pointing with the barrel of the gun and they could nail you. It feels like it's doable. Not that it should happen often, and quickscoping ideally would not happen often. It would happen sometimes, and that's kind of how it worked, but people got better at it, and they got much better at it, and then they got ridiculously good at it to the point where having a sniper rifle is better than having a shotgun in close quarters combat almost all of the time. And another little rant that I could go on is how shotguns are effective from somewhere between 50 to 100 meters, just depending on the type of shotgun you have, which would make it the most overpowered weapon in any map if it were realistic. That's a totally different thing. But real sniping is nothing like Call of Duty sniping. Real sniping is crawling through the bushes for a day, sitting there for 2 days, pissing on yourself, eating nothing, drinking a little bit of water, shooting one guy, and then sneaking away stealthily as fast as possible while covered in your own urine and feces. And it works a lot like DayZ, which was built on the Arma 3 engine developed by America's Army, the US Army, blah blah blah. And it works kind of like this.
Hey guys, Drifter here, just playing a little bit of DayZ. For once I got lucky and spawned close to something that appears to be used.
Yeah, more or less like that. You really never see the sniper, you don't often hear them, or you probably hear them after you get drilled by the bullet, which means you're dead, and that's the last thing you'll ever hear if you have that much brains left in you. So, but that wouldn't make for a very fun game. DayZ is a very hardcore kind of game, not everybody likes it. Call of Duty isn't, but it's still somewhat grounded in reality. And when you break that realism, it's kind of good in a way that allows you to pop back, to respawn, to have a gunfight to where you're able to outskill somebody instead of falling over instantly and dying. But when you break it too much, like quickscoping, like you drill somebody with a shotgun and hit markers, and then a 360 YY quickscope, you zoom in and pop you in the face with a sniper rifle because that's how the auto aim works, that kind of breaks the realism too much, which is a bad thing. And I'm not saying that for it to be realistic is good. Again, sometimes less realistic is more fun. Sometimes more realistic is more fun. You have to have a good balance. I think the quickscoping is on the bad side of that balance. And if you're thinking, oh, Drifter, heaven forbid that I have fun with my video game and it be too realistic, it's just an opinion. Hey, this game, you know, I would like to say, okay, well, if we're going to have that, then let's just have jetpacks and lasers. And I was like, well, you know, when you look at all the ridiculous weapons in Black Ops, we do just about have lasers. It's all a matter of balance. But before we move on forward, I would like to say one thing, and that's that quickscoping is not a real thing. In real life, there is no quickscoping. I see this on comments that so-and-so army is training their snipers to quickscope. Never. If you ever go to arming training and try to quickscope, you're probably going to get removed. If you ever go to a gun range and try to do that, you're probably going to get kicked off the gun range if the barrel of the gun doesn't jam your face or something. So don't do that. But aside from quickscoping, the new nerfs also changed something else. The sniper rifles in Black Ops 1 shoot very slowly, and they shoot slower than other games. They shoot slower than, say, Modern Warfare 3 or Modern Warfare 2. Some of them slower than Black Ops 1. We're not counting the fully automatic ones here. Those are totally different. We're counting the bolt-action sniper rifles here. They're shooting slower than they were before, which is making them harder to use, and some people are saying that even if you hardscope, they're too hard to use. And we'll go back to the realism example here, and I'll say, well, how fast can I shoot a bolt-action sniper in real life? And I thought, well, you know, why don't I get a bolt-action sniper rifle and test this out? This is some footage of me at a gun range with an Afghanistan veteran that I met up with here in Plano, Texas. He's going to shoot his, and he's going to hit his target 3 out of 3 times at 100 meters. He's hitting a target about the size of a human being, and I measured his shots. He shoots at approximately 21 RPM. Takes his time in between shots. He's from a sitting position, nothing too fancy. He has had some sniper training. I'm assuming that a proper elite pro military actual sniper spec ops black ops guy can do better than this. I'm not imagining that they're going to do ridiculously better. We'll say at best maybe twice that good, which is going to be important for later, than me as a person whose extent with rifle work goes to a handful of hunting rifles, and I shoot them maybe once every year or so. I shot about as fast as I could, and I got 26 RPM on my shots. I hit my target 3 out of 3 times. Instead of hitting a man-sized target like the other fellow, I was hitting maybe a Yeti-sized target, or maybe like an obese human being-sized target, i.e. we were both shooting at the same piece of paper. He was hitting the body, I was just hitting somewhere on the paper, but I wasn't trying to be accurate. I was just trying to shoot fast and get the bullets down range. So he got 21, I got 26. I'll say like a really awesome person could maybe get up to around 30s to 40s, which leads me to something interesting that a subscriber sent to me from Wikipedia called the Mad Minute, and this is linked down there in the description. The Mad Minute is a technique that was developed back in World War I to allow people to shoot bolt-action rifles faster and more accurately. The results they had were astonishing. Some of the Germans thought they were going around against fully automatic machine gun fire in some places. We had some people hitting a man-sized target 38 times in 60 seconds, which would be rather fast, very effective. So it's doable, it's possible, but it's an extreme example. Real life sniper rifles, if you're going to be shooting them right, shoot slower, but they also shoot at like quadruple the range of these sniper rifles, maybe stepped up like 100 times longer. Sniper rifles in real life are for extremely long range engagements, but the maps in Black Ops 2 or most of the more recent, even Modern Warfare 3 Call of Duty games, do not support these at all. The maps are not sniper friendly, which is why people want to quickscope. The game is very submachine gun dominant. It's very assault rifle dominant. Sometimes shotguns are, some of the maps like Rush or maybe like Nuketown are so small that shotguns are the dominant weapon, and the game very heavily favors these classes. Even at ranges, we'll say in Black Ops 2 ranges where you can snipe, the assault rifles and light machine guns are going to outperform the sniper rifles at almost every range. Most of what I will say the bigger maps have some ranges that are long enough to where if you have a sniper rifle, and usually if there is like one other sniper on the other side, that you'll actually be able to shoot them. Any other range you're going to get punished by an assault rifle or a light machine gun, especially a light machine gun with a target finder every time, so you rarely have an advantage with sniper rifles in Black Ops 2. This is inherent to the map design. The community likes small maps, they play on small maps are popular, and that's why the sniper rifles are rough to use. That's why a lot of people like to be able to quickscope, because quickscoping gives you an option for close quarters combat that you did not have before. If you didn't have quickscoping, you would be pretty much just shit out of luck here in Black Ops 2 with your snipers. I try not to curse in my commentaries. I was going to say up shit creek, but then shit out of luck is also cursing. But anyway, I'm getting off track here. If you could not quickscope, you would be pretty much hopeless, and swapping back and forth between weapons is kind of a risky thing, because if you get caught while you're swapping, you're dead. And I think that if the maps were bigger, if they actually supported sniping, it would be more fun, more like Battlefield. Battlefield has a definite role for snipers, even though they do get spammed and are a little bit annoying. But if the maps are going to be so tiny and the community is so oriented on these smaller, close-range, respawn, go-in engagements, then why even have these as an option? And I think the reason they have snipers as an option is because they're fun, and they sort of play into the military realism of the game of you can do anything, and they've always had them, and quickscoping has always been with the Call of Duty game, but they're just not practical anymore, or very rarely practical. And what I would like to see, what I think would change the sniping community and the game community, even if we left these patches in place to make quickscoping difficult, which I think is a good thing, because quickscoping breaks the realism, but there should be maps where you can actually use sniper rifles at long ranges effectively, and not just at only killing other snipers. Some good perches on objectives that are harder for AR and LMG players to knock down. That's kind of a hard thing to do with the engine and with the game as it is, but there needs to be an actual role for sniper rifles other than just trick shotting, because there's not a very tactical or effective way to snipe in Black Ops 2, and until that happens, I'm just going to say, why bother with sniping? I really only bother sniping when I want a challenge. It's never advantageous to my team, so I don't do it. And that's the end of this commentary. I hope that you enjoyed it. I hope that you learned something useful. I hope you check out Cross's channel. All of the links that I have down there in the description. I have links to some of my merchandise and shirts, and I don't know what all kind of links down in the description. There's going to be a ton of them. Hope you enjoyed it. Hope you subscribe. If not, oh well. Drifter out.